Hello buddy, this is Purge, and I'm bringing you guys a warding video. I haven't made a tutorial thing like this in a very long time, but I feel like I haven't seen a whole lot of warding and dewarding videos in a very long time, and a lot of players don't understand this, so I'm going to show you guys exactly how to figure that stuff out for yourself, and I'll show you guys what to do afterwards. So let us hop into the game. I'll just pick like a really strong support hero like Crystal Maiden. I've enabled cheats. I'm making a custom lobby here and I'm hopping into the game. So first things first, you want to be leveled up to max. Well, you don't have to, but you want to be fairly strong so you can kill neutral creeps really rapidly. That's the first thing. And the next thing is that you're going to need to learn a few commands. The ones that you're going to need to know is spawn neutrals. That one's really important. I put that one on my copy paste. That way I can just press enter and I can paste it and boom, all the neutrals spawn. And what you're basically doing is you're pressing that whenever you want to see if the neutrals can spawn. If the neutrals can spawn, that means that you haven't blocked a camp. So you might be wondering, what is this about blocking camps and stuff? Well, I'm also going to turn WTF on. That way I can get places very fast. I'll get a stupid amount of gold so I can buy an actual insane amount of sentry wards. And then also need some damage items, preferably. I think I like 2 of these. And then WTF is important, so you can get put across the map really fast. And then you just buy like a ton of damage, like rapiers. Oh, I forgot one thing. Last item you should probably have is a Battle Fury, because the Battle Fury lets you endlessly cut down trees. Okay, so let me just show you guys the basics, and then I'll go over each individual ward spot. First of all, kill neutral camps. Alright, so basically what happens is, I need to check to see where I have to stand to block this camp, because that tells me where the boundaries of the camp are. All camps have invisible lines on the ground that you can't really see. There are some ways to tell, but they're basically lines on the ground that you should memorize to know where you have to place observer wards or where you have to stand to block camps. Or this also gives you information to know where you have to pull the creep waves to when you're pulling and stacking. That way when the camp respawns, that it doesn't block itself with the pull. So for example, if I want to see if putting a sentry ward here is going to block the camp, I can press enter, I can paste my spawn neutrals command, and I can press enter. And it doesn't spawn, which means that I have blocked the camp. If I stand out here and I do it again, boom, I know that the line is somewhere in here. Now most camps, the way that they work is it's a box area. In almost all cases, it's kind of like a rectangle. If I was to guess this one right now, based on what I know from previous knowledge, I would guess the rectangle is something like this. It's about here. It obviously doesn't go up to the high ground, so sometimes they have a little circle in them, and sometimes they go up into the high ground over here. But for this one, I don't believe that's the case, but I know for a fact that this one ends somewhat over there. Something like that. So what I can basically do is I can test the limits of each camp, and how about I just do that for this one before I show you guys. I'll skip that part for subsequent camps. But so for example, let's spawn neutrals. It doesn't spawn there, so that means, by the way, the circle here, anything in this circle is going to block. Another way to block is to put a sentry ward down or an observer ward down, because this counts as a unit in the area, so I can check to see if that spawns. It actually doesn't spawn. And so now what I can do is kill wards, and that destroys all the wards on the map, and then I can place it more to the left, spawn. Okay, there we go. I got right on the line. So the line is basically about right here, I think, is my leftmost point, and this probably goes south all the way down here. We can just check that by, I have to kill the neutrals again, and then I can kill wards. And then I can put another sentry down here. Let's see if this blocks first. Oops, I have to move my hero out as well. And boom. Alright, this also blocks. So, I can't really check this now for 5 minutes because I don't know the command to respawn trees if there is one. But if you can place a sentry ward down here with the trees being there, that means you can block this in a very good spot, basically by putting the sentry down here. Now obviously we all know that putting a sentry up here does nothing. It's not actually going to block any spots, because it's very common to have wards up here, but it doesn't block the camp. So now I know that the left limit is about here. So that means when I'm pulling, I have to have all my creeps to the left of this. If I now check the upper limit, I'll kill the wards again, and I'll run up here, and I'll stand. If you want to be really precise, wards is the best way. It takes a little bit longer, because you have to do kill wards. That one actually doesn't block it, so it must be a little south of that. So what I'll do is I'll go like this, kill wards, and boom, and then I'll put a little bit more south. And then I'll see how far I have to go down to block it. And oops, I didn't mean to place that one, but this one has also not blocked it, so I'll go a little bit more south. Kill wards, and then put a little bit more south, and let's see if that works. So what it kind of looks like is that the northern limit is a lot lower than I thought it was personally. The western limit is about here, like I said. It's pretty much based on these trees in this little bush. That's something that's worth pointing out, is that a lot of ranges in Dota are actually set up and well designed by Valve to be based on, they coincide with like little pieces of the map. I'm having a lot of trouble finding the northern limit on this one, sorry about that. Kill wards. I actually didn't realize that it was so south. How about right there? Yes. Let's just, alright, so it's about here. So the limit is basically like this. I always thought that it maybe went north up into the trees, but apparently that's not true. So I'd say if I'm stacking this, it looks like it's a little shorter to the top, but I might be wrong on that. So yeah, that's this is basically my box here, and any observer wards or sentries within this is going to block. In pro games, when people want to block this camp, they usually put a sentry ward in here, I think, because this is going to be within that box. Because I believe the box goes west. I don't want to check, or east. I don't want to check that one, but I think it's like this. It's kind of hard to tell because my camera is slightly angled, but if I'm directly over this, you can clearly see that this one is more south than this one. And I know for a fact that it goes east all the way to here. So I think the block is something like this. So there's little tricks that you can learn. You can basically say like, oh wow, I need to know where I can hide a sentry ward, or where I can hide an observer ward if I really want to block this camp. Now that really only matters heavily if you're playing against Chens or Enigmas and you're trying to block those camps. But as we go over the pull spots, it'll be extremely important for any support out there, and I really recommend watching at least this video up until the point where I get to the pull spots. I'll do the pull spots first, followed by the ancient spots, and then I'll show you guys all the other camps as well. And to be honest, there isn't really a whole lot of minerals or a whole lot of resources about this kind of thing. The easiest way is just do it yourself, and that's why I'm telling you this. Again, kill wards, spawn neutrals, that's the most important commands. There's also a command to give yourself observer wards if you're interested in testing those instead. But the most important one is sentries, because it has to do with blocking as well as seeing where my sentries can detect. So now that I know that my box is like this, I have to think, okay, if somebody puts a sentry ward in here, where should I place my sentry ward to make sure that I get the most vision and I can check the most block spots without actually blocking it myself? So if I know the box is here, and it was somewhere around there, that means if I want to deward, I could probably put a sentry about here. I believe this one doesn't block. I'll have to find the horizontal limit. It might be based on this stick here. But this, if I click on the sentry, then it'll check all these spots. So if it's placed pretty much anywhere over here, it'll be checked. The only spot it's not going to check is about right here and about right here. So a lot of players would actually put a sentry here. And if they do that, let me show you how inefficient that is in comparison. It actually doesn't check a lot of the space. There's a lot of wasted space over here with the sentry ward, so having really good understanding of exactly where the boxes are allows you to check more space with your sentry wards and gives you a much higher chance of finding a observer ward. Honestly, I see a lot of pro players making mistakes with their sentry placements to check in pro games. It's like a super big deal, and it's kind of ridiculous because anybody can jump into a custom game and do their homework, and that's something that AUI 2000 talks about a lot. It's like basically doing your homework. You go into the jungle with nobody around and you see how fast you can level and you practice it. And a lot of players don't do that, myself included when I was playing in Korea, and that was a really poor choice. If you're playing like Chen or Enigma, you should be like Enigma, for example. You can hit level 6 at 4.5 minutes. If you can't do that, you just need to go practice a little bit and you should be able to handle it easy. So this is basically the same thing. You need to do your homework and you need to be able to deward. And if you can't do that correctly, you're making a big mistake and it could really lose you games. It's a huge deal. So this sentry, not so good. Unless you see them lazily place the observer right in the middle. This is one of the worst places to block. If I wanted to block this camp, I would either place it here, or I would maybe, if I could. Yes. I don't know if we can place it in here. See, I can't actually place an observer. Ooh, I can place it in here. This one's pretty good. What about like right here? I like this one a little bit. This one might not block here because I believe the limit is somewhere around here. But I think this one might block, and this might be a good place to put it. If I check the right, look at this, bam. This sentry now, which is a common deward spot, it actually isn't going to get it. And this one here will get it, but it's a little hard to find. You have to run all the way down here, which means that there's a chance that a player, I can get vision of it if I stand right here, I can see. But there's a chance that a player that's inexperienced about where you can block might miss it. So that's like a perfect example of a place where knowledge of these blocking spots are actually really important. I love talking about sentries and observer wards, as you can tell. So next up, let's go over the pull spots. And I just need to pause the video 1 sec. Alright, so before I move on and do the pull spots, there's one brief thing I want to show. Is just the typical things that are on the map to show you ranges and stuff like that. Like I talked about over here, I guess that this northern base of box is based on this log being here, because very often things like that do exist in the game. For example, tower attack range is about on a radius of the end of this little sigil over here. It's about right here. This is the safety range, and usually for detection. For this tower, the safety range is somewhere around this line. You can see the lines starting here and these bushes starting here. It's about there basically. Some other limits that I'll show later. On the ancient spot, the rightmost limit is based on this pillar here. It actually starts at this pillar, it goes down, and it goes west to this pillar. So you have to, usually when you're checking these lines, look for the map for little help like that. There's little things like that that will give you information. You know, just little basic ranges and things like that. So that's really important. Alright, let's go over the pull camp. Actually, I'm going to do the dire one first because I want to tell a story about it. This pull camp, you'll see me in a lot of my videos. And whenever I play offlane and I'm blocking this camp, I usually put my ward about here. And this ward actually does end up blocking, but it's not nearly as good of a place as I could be placing. And when I was watching TI in the finals, EG was playing against CDEC. And Universe came over here and he placed a ward that blew my mind. And the ward, I believe, was right here. Right there. This ward also blocks. And this blew my mind because I didn't know that you could place a ward that north and get away with it. Because this camp is one of the easiest to deward in the game. And now the reason it's really important to not get dewarded is because if your observer ward is there, I'm trying to get this creep to diagram me so the game doesn't end earlier. If you're able to block a small camp like this, or a pull camp, it prevents your opponent's supports from getting nearly as much experience in gold gain. And that's super big towards the course of you winning a game, because it means their supports are going to be more under-leveled, and your offlanes are going to be more leveled, because when a creep wave gets messed up, and that's the goal of an offlane hero like a clockwork, if you can mess up the creep wave, or the creep equilibrium, it means that his creeps die first, which means their creeps do more damage, which means their creep wave pushes, which means the creep wave will then push towards the safety of your tower as a clockwork, and you'll get more levels. If they have a pull camp, they can just pull the creep waves and deny those creep waves in the jungle while getting experience in gold themselves. So when Universe placed the sentry ward here, it freaking blew my mind because I did not realize you could place it so north. And part of the reason that this blew my mind is because I never see pro players place that spot. And this was literally a homework win that somebody on EG knew that you could block that north, and it's not common knowledge. It's actually like you guys could literally go into a custom game and you could figure this out yourself, but very few people, if any, that I saw at least, knew this in the pro scene. So it was literally a ward spot that was, in my opinion, I mean, this is just a guess, I might be wrong in this. It was, in my opinion, a ward spot that was not used because they were literally saving it for TI so that they would have a really good chance of whipping it out. Like, teams literally save their new smart ward spots until they play TI. That way they have a better chance of winning. It's literally saving ward spot strats, and I love talking about ward spots, and it blew my mind when he placed this sentry. Now, the reason this sentry is so big is because this camp is notoriously extremely easy to counter ward. The outer limits on this camp are somewhere around here, is about the northern limit. It's about here, and the western limit goes about here. And then if we scroll the screen down just a little bit, the southwest limit goes to about here, and the right side limit goes about here. It's pretty much right here. I'm just going to diagram the creep again. So common places that you can place to block this camp. This one's really common, right on the left side of this little clump of trees here. This one will block, I believe. You can also block right here. This one is also pretty common. And if we blink over to this side, you can also block by placing a ward right underneath this tree. Right there. This one will also block. You can also block by placing to the rightmost of this tree. Like right there. This actually blocks just slightly. I believe if you place a little bit too far right in this tree clump, it will block. And obviously anywhere up to probably about here will block as well. Something like this. So this is basically our right and left limits. Again, my box isn't going to look right because my camera is not facing straight down. But if my camera was facing straight down, it would be a box like this. I think you can also, if these trees weren't here, I could also put wards in here to block, but because there's no placement in here, you can't actually put an observer or a sentry there. So what's really cool about these observer wards, I'm just going to replace them so that they don't get lost. What's really cool about this this sentry ward is that the common D-ward spot that pretty much catches all these spots is placing your sentry right here. Right on the left side of this opening. See how different, how spread these are? The leftmost one will not block your camp. And look at what the sentry does. It gets all of these sentry wards, with the exception of maybe this one. It gets all of these sentry wards by itself, and the one sentry it doesn't get is this one. Look at that. It's barely outside range. So when Universe placed that sentry ward, I was like, oh my god, that's so northeast. I think it's actually not going to get dewarded. And see, this is the one that I was using consistently. It's actually within that common range, so it's very easy for that one to actually get dewarded. So this sentry blew my mind, and that was so cool from Universe and EG to think of, or at least practice and find out this sentry ward. It's around here. The reason I placed it where I was is because I looked at this little ripple of darkness on the ground. And I remembered the pattern. I seem to remember it's about there. And we can check this. Let's kill the wards. Let's replace that one. And let's see if it spawns. Oops, that's for giving wards. I want to spawn neutrals. And then I'm going to copy paste that again. Alright, and it doesn't spawn. This sentry ward right here blocks. And this is a sentry ward that helped them really win a game in some ways, because it really limited their supports able to get farm. So that's one camp. That's basically all there is to know about this camp. If you ever place the sentry right here, you are lazy. I hate it when people do that. This is the best one. I feel a little bad about making this into a video because it reveals something that's very potentially game breaking. But it's kind of good because in the past this camp was very easy to deward. You could almost always just deward it with one sentry. Now it might take two. So to deward it, you either have to place this sentry, or you'd have to place a sentry like right here. Somewhere about here. It's about, you can actually place it a little bit more west, and it might be good to do that. You could place it more like here, I think. You could probably get away with it. That sentry would be very good. I believe you also can block right here. You can get away with that. If I place the sentry like right, let me kill the wards and we can test it. Kill wards. I think if I place it like right here, it'll block. So I was testing this earlier. Alright, that one's slightly wrong. Again, I'm going to de-aggro. So that one was wrong. Oops, let me kill this. Kill wards. And I'm just going to look right at it. That way I can place a slightly different spot. Let's try right there. Alright, and that one blocks. And let's see if it's detectable by the sentry. If I place the leftmost point, it does not get spotted. So now I have two new ward spots that I figured out literally today just by dicking around here and testing this out. And you guys can do the same thing. And part of the reason I'm really wailing on you guys to be like, you can test this too, is because the map changes sometimes. And especially going into Source 2, the ground floor changes a little bit. And I noticed that. So some of the same things that I'm looking for, like this little bump here, to know to place right here, that may not exist in Source 2, so you may need to do that work for yourself. So on this camp, I've got two new spots that I just figured out. One from Universe, which is right here, or right here. This might block as well. Or I can place down here. So that means that now when my opponents deward, it might take them 2 sentries. Or if they're really bad at dewarding, they might actually just not get it. And if they don't get it, man, I won my team the early game, or at least I won my offlane the early game. So that's really important. All right, that is spot number 1. Let's go take a look at the other side of the map. This is the other pull spot. And thus, these are the 2 most important ones to learn. If you guys don't take anything else from this video, these are the most important parts, such as dewarding and blocking this. So those are all dead. The points on this one are a little bit easier. Well, they're very difficult to deward because the space is a lot higher, but if I was to give a really vague rectangle, the western limits basically cross this bush, in the middle of this bush, and they go all the way south to this point, down to like here. This is the southwest corner, and it goes out to the right like this, over to the right. Actually, it's a bit more south than that, I think. It's about there. So the block point goes down to here, I think. Let's test it out. Oh, let's see. Right there. Yeah. So you can actually place this a lot more south. Usually I'd put it right here in the bush. But you can put a little bit more south. So in the south point, it goes down to there. Kill the wards again. Kill the wards. And it goes to the right down here to about this point. between these two bushes, basically. I'll just double check this. I usually assume that is the south right corner. This one actually does not block. Slightly misplaced. Kill wards. And we'll try it like right here.
Into the breach.
It's not going to be the most accurate because it is a corner piece. It's a little bit closer. Alright, and this one actually ends up blocking. So you have to place it a little bit more northwest than that. Looks like it actually does end up coming down to about here. About there. And then this goes north. So it's basically, these are all block points, more or less. Over here, it basically blocks here. You can place sentries, observer wards here. You can put them over here. I really like the leftmost point. This one's really fun. So put one like right here is good. This should block.
I'll not argue.
Very good block spot. Very often people don't check this one. Most people will either deward in this way. I'll show you the northernmost spots first of all. This line basically goes vertically up. There's a block spot right here in this tree to the far left. If you place it to the right, it doesn't block. Let me see if I can place the right one. Alright, I believe this one here does not block. This one does. So if you want to deward on a rightmost point, this one can work, but I think it's a little bit bad. You're better off, if you're dewarding, I would want to put my sentry right here instead. This one's a little bit better because it covers the southernmost area, or you might be able to even place in here. This one looks a little bit better. Now I'd probably still prefer this one because it'll cover more area down here, whereas this one covers less area down here and only slightly more area right here. Not much, not much. So this is a deward, this is a block, this one is a block, these are all dewards. And then this one is a block.
I move.
And you can also block right here, anywhere here, it's fine. These should block. If you're dewarding, what you do is you kill this tree, and then you put the sentry right on top of it. The block point ends up cutting like right here. So this is the best ward for dewarding this spot here. This will cover Magic Bush on the left side. Magic Bush is an intersection between this block camp and this block camp. That's why it's called the Magic Bush, because the two angles coincide. So that means if you put a sentry ward here, it'll block two camps instead of just one. So this deward here will catch all of the north components. And if you want the south components, you place it right under this, which is going to be about here. About the midpoint. You want about the midpoint between this corner and this corner. And you want slightly south of that. I think this one might be slightly misplaced, so I'm actually going to kill all the wards. And I'm just gonna see if it's correct, because I haven't checked this in a while. Alright, this one does not block, so that was a safe place. And that's a little bit more north than I normally place it, actually. Usually I place it about here. But a little bit of distance is a huge deal, because this might catch an observer ward or not. And if you can save one obs ward, that's 100 gold. So one obs for one sentry is a good trade for you, but two for one, not as good. But it's definitely worth it. So this is my south deward. My north deward is here. And this is basically where things get tricky on this camp, because this camp's a little bit hard to deward. Let's look at the space that my sentries cover now. I cover a lot of the south part, and then if I check the north part, I cover almost all the north part. Well, which parts don't I cover?
Yes.
Well, I don't cover this part. This is the one that I did before to block. And it also doesn't cover this part right here.
Let's go.
Look at that. It's outside of both of those ranges. So I have a little bit of a triangle here that is very difficult to deward, and a little bit of a triangle here that's very difficult to deward if people do a north-south. What a lot of players have been doing lately is an east-west detection, in which case they'll end up placing a sentry here to check, and this will catch the west component, and they'll place an eastern deward, which is about here, and this will check the eastern components. But then we have big circles again, and we have big dead space. Let me get a little closer here. So then we have this circle here and this circle here, which leaves a little bit of a square here and a little bit of a square here. Now, it's very unlikely that in the pro scene somebody would put an observer or a sentry right here, but it all comes down to mind games, and this is where things get really cool. It's like, if you're playing an average pub, somebody's going to walk up and they're going to be like, ha, I blocked it, did it, nice. But this is the worst place to put it, because look, okay, it's actually going to work out this time, but this is only if you do like next level dewarding. You're actually going to miss this stupid spot. This completely stupid spot would work. But if the old style of dewarding was basically north-south, and both of these would catch this. Whereas, Like, this is literally only a good ward if if your opponent thinks that you're going to place a good block. If you're going to place a good block, and you expect your opponent to place a good block, you're going to deward east-west. If they think you're going to do a tricky one, basically. If they think you're going to do a tricky one, then they should definitely... See, this looks like it detects it, but it actually doesn't. It's if you look from north, it doesn't quite catch it. So it's all about mind games, basically. Blocking is all about mind games. But make sure that you know where to place these, because if you don't, what a lot of people do is they'll say, oh, I'll deward, bam, and then they block themselves. Or they go north and they say, oh, it's time to deward this, and they put it like right here, because they don't exactly know where the northern limits are. And then that might not catch an observer ward that's right here, or a sentry ward that's right here. Or, for example, this one catches this little tree in here, but this one might not. It's very close. They might place a block that it doesn't catch. So it's really important to know exactly where those lines are. If you guys don't feel like you figured it out by watching this video, or you don't see those limits, just go practice it. It's kind of fun. You can check things out and you can see where the limits are. So that is the 2 pull spots. Those are the most important ones to deward. We're going to move on to Ancients next. And then afterwards I'm going to do all of the other camps. So hold on a sec and I'll pause the game and I'll jump to those.
Agreed.
Alright, we'll go on to the Radiant Ancient first. This is one, blocking Ancients are really important sometimes when you're against a hero that has a Helm of the Dominator, or a hero that's very good at clearing Ancients, such as Ember Spirit, or a Gyrocopter. Very common heroes. Blocking Ancient camps is really important. So this is the easiest one to look at. I actually don't know the limits of this one yet, because the last time I did this is when the Ancients were down here. But this camp is exactly the same, and I remember looking at this one a lot when I was on Zephyr. The rightmost limit is based on this pole, and then it goes south, and then it goes west to this pole. So if you ever want to block this camp, the easiest thing to do is just put an observer ward right here. Because this observer ward, I'll show you guys the vision as I blink away. Well, this is going to respawn the camp. Actually, it blocks, obviously. If you put an observer ward here, it actually gives you really good vision. You still see the rune. It's pretty much equivalent to this one, but it's a little safer. So if you're on the Dire team, for example, and you want to block their camp, but you don't want them to deward you, like for example, a lot of decent players will put a sentry here, because this checks observer wards here, and it checks observer wards here. Look, it doesn't actually check your observer ward. Or if you just want to get rune vision, but you don't want to have as high of a chance of getting spotted, you can put your observer ward here instead. Like, putting it right on the corner is kind of a mistake. Unless you're maybe Radiant and you want it for defensive purposes, it's okay. And a lot of bad players will be stupid and they'll put their sentry ward right where they expect their observer wards to go, in which case they'll get your observer ward. Never put your sentry ward right here. I think it's a huge mistake. If anything, you'd place it like right here. Because then you still get a little bit south.
Let's go.
You get a little bit south. And you still check this area over here. Placing your sentry right on this is just stupid. Most people will never put an observer ward right here, basically. So this is the right and left limits. The southern limits again go down to this point. So if you ever want to deward your ancient spot, like if somebody runs past and they put a sentry right on top, the best way to place it is right to the right of this pole. This should not block. And by doing that, if I click on the sentry, it pretty much checks almost all the spots. Pretty much all the spots. If you don't know another good place you can place sentries literally in this entire crevice. I found this out when I was testing. None of these block. Literally none of these sentries block. The outermost limits of this camp are within the cliff. So if you ever want to deward, these ones are really good too, as you can see. The only problem is that they better check people placing observers or sentries from the left side. If they place from the right, it's pretty likely that they're going to be somewhere right here. So I feel like this sentry is almost always better. Another really good, the only basically sneaky spot that you can plant here, in my opinion, I don't know. Let me do a little bit of testing. Kill wards, goodbye wards. I feel like this one does not block. It does not block. So this one can also be placed as a leftmost deward spot. But we can figure out where the rightmost point is. What if we place one there? And now we're getting a little tricky. Let me just double check that again and make sure I wasn't blocking. That one is actually okay. This is a little bit of a tricky ward spot here that pretty much nobody ever does. Most people just, when they block, they either put it here or they put it right on the camp. I like this one. I literally have never thought about this one or tried this one out before, but this one works, and I'm pretty sure that it would work right here as well. I'm sure this one would also work. This one's kind of cool because now when somebody comes to deward, if they put a sentry down, see the rightmost limit, see if that checks things out.
Your top tower is
It
under
actually doesn't get them. So all of a sudden you're going to make your opponents use 2 sentries, and that's pretty cool. Now they could always just run past and like drop a ward in the crevice and boom, now they can see it. But to put an observer ward or a sentry ward over here is pretty cool. There's one other tricky spot that I know about. You can go up here, you can blink into here so you can see that there's a little bit of space to walk. I think there's another one. I think this space is like right here. You can't blink there, but you can place an observer ward. Bam. This also blocks actually. This is a very good good block spot. Let me just double check that. Kill wards. Go over here. You can block a camp right here.
Indeed.
That one is a little fickle, but yeah, it does block. I think I'm not within range. There we
Your
go.
middle
This
tower
one also
is under
blocks.
attack.
I think if you put it a little bit too north, it does not block. So you have to be careful to keep it south. That was something I found out. If you put it like way up
Your
here,
top tower is under attack.
On.
I think it doesn't block. That one's still blocking. If you place it to the right a little bit, I think that one doesn't
Your
block.
top tower
But
is
you can
under
also
attack.
hide one up here. This one's really good for blocking ancients, and it's much less likely to be dewarded. The problem is that to place there, you have to stand next to the ancients, and they will attack you. So there was one game that we played versus Old Orange / Titan, where we were supposed to have a team fight down here, and I ran into the ancients to put this ninja ward down, and I took like a bunch of damage, and I was late to the team fight. It was really embarrassing. So this ward is really, really good as well. It's a good secret ward, and it's very difficult for your opponents to find, which might mean that you can elongate. So if you ever want to block this camp, I would either place a sentry or a knobs here. If it's knobs, I would put it here. Otherwise, you could hide things in here, or you would put on left these trees here, but on the right side, not on the left side. It has to be this right side one. So that's how you block that camp.
I'll not argue.
Alright, I just figured out the areas for this camp. The way it basically works is the leftmost point is literally just outside of this fire pit. It goes about here. So to show this, I will put a sentry here. Okay, I was a little bit too close. That one blocks. And then I'll put it slightly to the left of that. Oh, that one spawned. So there we go. So right here is the leftmost limit, about there. If you place, if you stand anywhere east of this, it will block. I also killed these trees here to check this out. All of these spaces in here will also block. The northmost point is insane, actually. I think I'm on this will spawn, right? Yeah. I'll show you the northmost point. It is so close to the creep waves, it blew my mind. You can place the sentry all the way up to here. Oops. Those some blocks. Kill wards.
Yes.
This one really surprised me. Alright, I am... I swear I literally just checked this. Alright, look how close that is. It looks like it would block, but I guess the northmost point goes something like this. It's probably about here. I assume you can't put sentries right here. Yeah, you can't. So, I think the way that the block on this one works, since it's been updated, goes kind of like this. And it'll cut about here, and it'll wrap around this building, and then it goes east and it hits the wall, and it curves all the way down. So when you're dewarding, this is probably the best one to place. You can place it in the trees here, and it'll pretty much check all of the areas. This area is really not very big. I assume placing detection or placing a ward on the high ground doesn't do anything either. So if I blink up here, can I place a sentry ward anywhere around here? Doesn't look like it. And I doubt anything up here will block as well. What if I kill it with a tree? Let's see if that works. Ooh, that's a good spot. What elevation is that at? I can't really tell. Let's see if I can investigate. It is actually at the higher elevation. This is actually a really good block spot. This is probably the best block spot that I found, because now you're looking at something that's on a high ground. The downside is that you need to be able to clear trees to place it. You can't place, sometimes trees are too compact that you can't place things, and you also can't stand there. So some of these like little tree clumps where all you see is trees, you can't place anything there. So if I really want to block this ancient camp, the best place is probably to kill a tree here with either a quelling blade or a move that kills trees, like Lena Stun for example. And then you can place an observer ward there or a sentry ward, and that will block their ancients. That is a much better block, in my opinion, than the ones on the Radiant side. The other place that I would maybe place is you could do the same thing on the right side. I killed this tree earlier, and you could place an observer ward or a sentry there, and this will also block. And I feel like most players don't understand this camp very well because it's brand new, so most of them would probably sentry here, in which case the sentry ward will absolutely not catch this one. It will catch this one, but this is up on a cliff, so it's hard for most players to spot. So blocking this camp, it's probably best if you clear a tree and then you kill it. If you don't have that ability, I would probably, well again, clear tree, kill it. You could still place here. I think this also blocks. Kill wards. I'll just test this out. Boom, also blocks. So if I'm blocking this camp, I'd probably place the right extremity. If I can kill trees, I would have to place here or here. And then if you're blocking the left extremity, you could probably get away with putting like here. But I think this one's kind of bad because people very often will put a sentry here to check for observer wards on this cliff or over here. Or they'll place a sentry here to check for observer wards here.
I'll not argue.
While also checking here. So I think this one kind of sucks because they might just find it. You're better off placing the right side in my opinion or placing the cliff one.
Yes.
So that is that camp. Alright, so now we get to go over all the other camps that are in the jungle to show you their common block spots. I'm going to be a little bit more hasty with these because they're less important, because they're only really important to deward if you are being blocked and your camps are being blocked by a hero like if you're an Enigma or a Chen and people move into your jungle and they put wards on all your camps. Best way to block these, the ward or the extremities, we already did this one a little bit, but it looks like it's somewhere on the log. It goes left a bit and then down. And then it goes to the right, like we showed before. You can block in here. This one will block. You can deward that by probably placing northern extremity about here. So this will check most common spots to block here. And then you can also put a sentry on the top lane. I already showed these to you guys too, but I'm just going to go over them again. That way we cover all our bases. These two spots here would deward everything. These two sentries here. So that's that camp. For this camp, things are a little bit crazier. To my knowledge, what I'm going to do this one is I'm going to cut down all the trees. This is going to be the easiest way to do it. Murder trees. This is the easiest way to figure out your extremities. It's not as good for figuring out where you can actually place things, because this means that I can place my sentries and observer wards wherever the heck I want, but this will give me a bit of a limit. So, doesn't spawn there. You know, let's kill the wards because those might be blocking as well. Nope. This one actually is a pretty west point. So it's about here. This is about the westernmost point for this camp. A little surprising, but it's already hard enough to stack, you know. Let's see if that spawns just to make sure. Alright, this actually blocks. Kill wards. Just double check. Yep.
Here I come.
So that one blocks. It's about on this tree here, so a little bit left of this tree will not block. And then let's check the northern limit. Start a little bit close, then I'll move north just a little bit. Oops. And we'll move north just a little bit. We'll move north just a little bit. We'll move north just a little bit. This one is huge. It's just a medium camp, man. Man, that one is... No wonder this camp is so freaking hard to stack. This camp is actually so hard to stack, because all of the creeps have to be north of this point, or they have to be west of this point. So this one is huge. It goes something like this. It'll curve around this little hump here. I believe you can block all the way up to here. And then the southwestern point. I believe these two don't overlap, by the way. I believe they actually meet perfectly, like that and like that. They line up perfectly with south and north. So that to deward this, I don't know, it's just a medium camp. Doesn't matter. You could put a sentry over here, or you could put a sentry a little bit north of this, like this, and this should cover all of the spots. Actually, there is a space here. You could also, let me just check for a hill spot. I feel like there's a hill spot on this one. Oops, gotta kill these.
Here's ice in your eye.
I feel like there is a hill spot for this thing, and there is. This spot also blocks. You'll see this one a lot in programs because you don't have to kill trees to place it. Might be able to block here too.
Indeed.
That one does not block. So if I'm dewarding, I would probably place this one here because it'll check this hill. I think you can run into this. Let me see. So you would have to use a tango to kill this tree, and then you could walk over here and see the observer ward. So if you're trying to deward the place here, this one, you'll have to use a tango to kill this tree to walk over here to get vision. Otherwise, you wouldn't have a way to get vision to kill the observer or the sentry ward. So I would place here, and for the other one, I would probably place it like right here. Is the northmost point based on this light pole? Because I feel like it will be.
Your middle tower is under
It is not, because that's slightly higher. Was it this one?
I'll not argue.
Is it that little bush? Where's our marker? Alright, so it's basically between this area. Between the bush and the light pole is our north marker. That was a little bit less important because this camp is not often blocked or dewarded, but if you're dewarding it, I would probably place here. Eat this tree and deward.
Here I come.
Because it's most likely here. This is the best spot. They could place one like over here though. In which case that's a little bit harder to find. I wonder if this looks like you can place a sentry in there. I'll see if that blocks. That also blocks. This is a really good block actually. I'd probably place this block if I was trying to block it. So that's that camp. Let's go to the next one. Alright, this one's pretty straightforward. The leftmost point, I believe, is around here. Because I place observe wards here sometimes. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. Kill wards.
I thought as much.
Alright, this one actually blocked.
Agreed.
Oops, gotta press the can. Alright, this one didn't block. So the westmost point is about here.
Forward.
That means you can block west of the spawn. Like here, I think should block.
Indeed.
This one doesn't. What if I block?
Into the breach.
I think that one will block. Does not actually, okay. So this is one of our good deward points then. That'll tell us that much. But this is pretty east. Are there any places in here we can put? Oh, here. Yeah, let's see if that blocks. So it looks like there isn't really a northmost point. It probably stops around here. I'm gonna assume this blocks, for example. Yep, that one blocks. So our box is something like here, and it goes over to the right. I know for a fact that you can block right here. So any wards placed in here is gonna block. Boom. So this is a common observe ward place for some players when they want to block the large camp, but they also want rune vision. They'll place their observer ward here. Now this rightmost point, it goes to out here. So be a little careful when you place sentries in this area. You don't want to block. This would block, for example, probably. And then this goes south of the magic bush. To demonstrate that,
I move.
just go over here, kill everything. Place one on the magic bush. Go stand over here. No creeps.
Let's go.
No creeps. So one little ward right on the magic bush will block both camps. So the eastmost point is about here, and then this goes west over to the bush, this bush here, and then it goes north, and then it must curve a little bit or something. I'm not exactly sure how it works. It might just.
Here I come.
Let's try. Gotta kill wards first, because that one will block.
To battle.
That one doesn't block.
I move.
Alright, so it basically goes up to here. I swear.
Into the breach.
I guess this one is a little bit left of this one. The line is very close. So if you really want to be cool, you could do something like this, I bet. Kill a tree. Plant it right there. See if that works. That's a tricky thing you can do. And that one actually blocks. So basically these trees are in the way of the leftmost limit. If the trees are there, you can't actually place east enough. But this doesn't always work very well because some players will place a sentry right in here. This is a juke path that's very common, so you can obviously fit detection in there, or wards. So this isn't really that tricky of a spot, I feel, because the two most common spots for people to place are, I feel, here, or they'll place here. Or it'll be magic bush, but you can always figure out if it's magic bush because you can wait for the timer to hit, and then you see, is my small camp blocked, is my large camp blocked? If it's both, it's usually the magic bush. To deward that, I would usually place like right here. Or you can go down here to the south limit, which is here, and you can put a sentry here. So make sure this doesn't block this camp. Put it like right there. This would also cover magic bush. This is if I know the observer ward is right here. If I'm just trying to generally deward this one, I would probably place the right limit, which is right to the right of the magic bush, put it like right here. This one will check a lot of the spots, almost all of them. Or I can put a leftmost ward, like right here. And this will also check a lot of spots. So there's actually a lot of good spots that you could place here that would block, but a lot of people sometimes put their observer wards here. But this is a very, very common deward spot because observer wards are great here, so I don't really like this one very much. Maybe, but At least not in the late game. Early game it doesn't matter that much because people aren't going to be checking for observer wards before 10 minutes at this
Your
spot. So
bottom tower
that looks like I'm about to lose the game. Don't want to win the game too hard. Or lose the game too hard. I'll have to restart because I don't think I'll be able to get through the other side in time. So that's that camp, and we got one left. I actually don't know that much about this one, so I'm going to pause a little bit, take a look at it, and I'll get back to you. One second. Alright, this one took frickin' forever. This is a really, really big AoE. So, cut all the trees down, checked where the observer wards were. Left side column is about here. It's right. All of these sentry wards are not blocking, by the way, and I just used the observer ward for vision, but none of these here are blocking. So the leftmost component is something like this. It goes over to the tree line, it cuts all the way right to the tree line, and then it goes south from this point down to here, and then it goes all the way over. It's actually a very, very huge spot, and then left again to this most point. So make sure that when you're dewarding this camp here, that you don't place too north, because if you do, you're actually going to block this camp. If you place more north than this sentry ward that I placed here, you will block. So as you guys can see, oops, gotta go a little bit down. Alright, there we go. That ends up being exactly what you need. God, these things are so hard to kill. Did you know that every freezing field explosion is equivalent to a crystal nova at level 3? Isn't that crazy? That's crazy, dude. Alright, so yeah, that's its camp. Very common spots that people will place to block. This is my favorite one, I think. Let's see if I can place a sentry ward anywhere. This one. This is my favorite one because it's blocked in the trees. You can't see it unless you have like an observer ward over here. You won't be able to see it from the low ground. So that one's very good. This one blocks. Most lazy people will just put it like here, or they'll blink and they'll be like here. But I don't think that's very good. You could very easily deward that by placing here. That'll check most of the common spots. I think this one's okay. This one's alright because it's kind of bad if you also block this camp because most people place a high sentry over here. But yeah, the rightmost is here. So that checks most of these common spots, but I think this is the best block, but it's pretty common and pretty commonly done. It's actually a good observer ward place. People don't do that often, but you can put an observer ward here, then it blocks. Here, let me kill the wards. Place some observer ward here, boom, and let me show you the vision. So this blocks, it also spots the rune, and it spots the river. So it's not amazing, but it blocks, and it gives some rune vision, which is kind of cool. It's definitely giving some rune vision. This one's kind of nice. I like this one. Let's see if I can place a little bit better. See if that one makes a bigger improvement. Yeah, that one's really good. This one's not bad. So if you place a little bit here, this is a pretty good observer ward. At least then, you're forcing your opponents to stack and pull. They can actually pull this camp over. If it's like a range creep, it can work, but it's a little bit hard. But sometimes blocking the medium camp is a little bit safer. That way they can only stack and pull the small camp. They can't necessarily control the wave as easily. Oh, looks like the game's about to end. Alright, so I'm going to have to restart this with a new lobby. I'll be right back. And then I'll show you guys the dark side. Alright, we're back in a new game. Gonna check out our points. So for the large camp here, I believe the limit is about in the middle of that. So if I check this, there we go. So the uppermost limit is about there. Double check. Alright, there we go. So this is about the north limit here for this one. Check the left side. I feel the west point of this is actually pretty far. Yeah, it's actually quite far. I remember I checked this this morning. I think, oops, I just jumped a bunch. I'm trying to only move a little bit if possible. This one goes all the way over. Actually, it's really wide left. There we go. So it's somewhere around here. This is the westernmost point. So it's basically a box like this. It'll go to the right, and then it goes over to the right, and then it goes south, and then it cuts about here, I think. Let me just double check that this one doesn't block, and then we just need to kill everything. And then we need to see just how south it goes. Alright, so this blocks. I think that might be... I'm going to put an observer ward down, just so... Oops, I didn't buy one. just so I can see faster if the camp's spawning.
To battle.
Tower is under attack.
Agreed.
Alright, good. Now, I just need to
I'll
see
not argue.
where the southern limit is. This is not it.
Here I
The
come.
problem is I'm kind of far away, so it's like this one does it. So this is potentially a really good spot down here. You could block like right here
Swiftly.
if you want to. It's a spot I feel like most people don't block. Whenever the best block spot for this one, and it's very commonly done by pros, it's actually to block up on this cliff. This cliff you can't actually place anything on. Put on a different hotkey. You can't actually place any sentries up there. Alright, that one you can.
Let's go.
Actually don't know if that one blocks. Let's try.
Indeed.
This one actually does block, so this is a really good block spot, and you actually don't need to kill a tree for it. I did not know that that existed. Let's see if that one blocks.
I thought as much.
So both of these ones block, actually. Very good block spots. I've also seen pro players, I think they can block over here as well. Well, we have to test.
Forward.
Let's first see if this one blocks. It does.
I thought as much.
And let's see if this one blocks. It should. It does not actually. So this is a good D-word spot. This is the best D-word spot, I think, because it'll spot all your cliffs. The only problem is if you're trying to D-word this spot, you have to kind of predict where they're going to cliff it. They can either cliff it here. Another thing I've seen pro players do is they'll run right here. They'll use the tango to eat this, and then they'll put it right here. Because if you're D-warding this, it's very unlikely that you're going to have uphill vision, because you won't have a flying courier at the start of the game. So to D-ward this one, it's almost impossible, because you basically have to predict if they're going to eat a tango, use a tango to put it here, or if they're going to put it over here. Or they could also just be a little tricky generally and put it like right here would work as well, I think.
Here I come.
Right there. And then you don't really always know where it's going to be. This one blocks as well, and it goes about till, what was it, like middle of this camp, and then it goes all the way over to these rocks about. I think this little rock kind of lines up pretty evenly. You can kind of see where it goes. Oops, right about there. And then it goes over. It's basically like this. This is your block points, and it goes over to the right, and it goes south down to about here. Somewhere around here. It's probably about this tree. And it goes up to the right. So this one's pretty difficult to D-ward. I think the best spot's probably, you either have to guess exactly where they placed it, like place the sentry right on top of here for that little bit of vision,
Forward.
or you'd have to put a sentry here. Wait, you can't do that because that would block. Duh. And you also can't place it here because that would block. So basically, if you can't get vision, what if you do it like there? Does that one work? That one works. Okay. So if you're checking for this one, you could put the sentry very south, and then it won't block.
Faster.
That's probably the best one. That'll give you a vision of this area. You won't see him here, but if you place there, you block anyways. So yeah, that's it for this spot, this camp. Let's check out the next one.
Let's go.
I think, did I do this one already? I've tested it. I can't even remember.
Indeed.
I think it goes westmost to about the same as this rock here, I think. Let me see. Oops. Bad time.
Indeed.
And then we'll go a little bit right. Oops, gotta kill him first. Slow. Alright, this one, this is the block limit basically. It's about here on the rocks. And I think it goes north
Agreed.
till about these rocks as well. About here.
I move.
Let's put it down a little bit.
But better.
Put it down a little bit.
Into the breach.
Dang it.
The ice will spike.
Come on, golems. This is why it's important to have the rapier. You guys probably thought I was kidding around, but no, that
I
shit's
thought
real.
as much.
See how blue we can get our screen to be. Continue moving it. Oh, dang it.
Here I come.
Alright, that one
Your
also.
middle tower is under attack.
I'll not argue.
Man, this one
Your
is like
bottom tower is under attack.
very clearly north shallow.
Faster. On. Yes.
Alright guys, I've unfortunately wasted approximately 30 seconds of your time. finally found it. Wow, it's way off. Okay, so this one goes right, and then it goes east, and then it cuts down. The limit is, it's about here. I'm not going to show you because, you know, I already spent like 20 minutes on this camp. But it goes south down to here. If you want to block this one, some common block spots, I believe, are there in the trees. Oops. Towards about here.
Swift as the wolves of Icerak.
I believe this one will block. Yeah, it does. And the rightmost point is somewhere over there as well. If you're dewarding this one, I think you can safely put it here. About there.
Let's go.
Yeah. So you can put a little bit right, and this will check almost all your spots. You can also get some sneaky little spots like down here. I think this is a good one. Oops. And nothing spawns, so this one's pretty good because it's kind of hard to see. You can probably see with a ranged hero from here, so maybe it's not the best. But it's outside of this range, which is pretty cool. So if you're placing a left side detection ward, you'll be able to spot it very easily. But, you know, you might be able to waste their time. That's really what it comes down to. This one's actually really interesting as well. This one pretty much wraps around the tunnel like this. And then when it gets to about here, it goes to the right. And then it goes up.
I'll not argue.
I think the rightmost point was based on this rock here. Actually, I'm going to pause and check these out just so I don't waste anybody's time. One sec. After much trial and error, I figured out the spots. This is the rightmost point, and the left or the northmost point is a little bit higher than this campfire. So the smaller campfire, about middle of the way, is the northmost camp point, northmost block point, and on the right side, it pretty much ends. The rightmost level is about where these two rocks end, somewhere around here. So look for these as your little texture clues on the ground, and I can show you guys that it spawns.
Forward.
Anything slightly closer to the camp is not going to spawn. So the best way to stack this is usually going north, because you just have to get everything past this point. There's also some very good block spawns down here. You can block here, I believe. Yes, that blocks. If you place it a little bit too south, I believe that doesn't block. Kill wards. You put it. You can basically stand here. You can place it about here. That does not block. So if you want to deward this spot, I think this is arguably maybe the best sentry ward, because remember the north point was about here, and this almost catches everything. I think this is the best one. Also, you have a good chance of, you have a very small chance of being able to visually spot out any sentry ward placed here.
Swiftly.
That still doesn't block, but if somebody puts it like here, your sentry is going to gives a little bit of vision, and it might actually spot it out. So I think this is your best place if you're trying to deward this spot. You can also go with a right limit ward, again right here-ish,
I
a
move.
little bit outside the rocks. This will give you pretty much everything as well, but if you don't have a way to clear trees, then you're not going to be able to get high ground vision, and you won't be able to spot that. So if I was going to block this camp, I think this would be an okay place. One of the downsides is that people will often put an observer ward up here, and they'll often have sentries as well, so they could very easily just spot your sentry if they're dewarding commonly. But if I was going to block this, I would definitely place here, and if I was going to deward it, I would definitely place here. Or I'd put a sentry up here. So that is this camp, the medium camp. Has a little bit of high ground action, that's always kind of fun. And the last camp, this is actually one of the most important ones. It's kind of a mistake for me to leave it to the last, I think. So I did all these right. I did this one, I did this one. Yeah, I went through all the way to Radiant Jungle, and I've gone all the way through Dire. Skipping the pole camp because we already talked about this, but for this super large camp, the eastmost,
I'll not argue.
Your bottom
I'm
tower
gonna
is
double
under
check.
attack.
I did this earlier this morning. All right, another huge ass area. The limits of this one are very wide.
I'll not
The
argue.
right side goes all the way out to here. The line can basically be figured out by a couple things. You've got this little clump of bones to the right of that clump of bones, and where this little line comes out, about halfway through that, is the rightmost limit, and this goes all the way down to the cliff and all the way over. So some very good places that you can put observer wards or sentries on if you do want to block this camp, and it is sometimes good to block this if you're a Radiant support against an offlane who's kind of good at contesting. It's good to block this camp so he can't side pull. And if you're Radiant, you can also block this, similar as blocking the medium camp down here, because then your opponents can only stack pull on the small camp. So let me just replace these so we don't lose them, since they only last for 3 minutes or so.
Into the breach.
Alright, upper camp goes up to about here, this wall block, and then it goes west to about here, and then down.
Yes.
So basically the safe limit on the north is actually not very good. So if this camp's blocked, very often what it is that one of your opponents has placed an observer ward here or here, so that they can see in the lane, and they can see over here, and they also block the camp. But it kind of gives away where it is. Whenever this camp is blocked, I almost always put a sentry right over here. I'll place a sentry like right here. It's kind of dangerous, but switch goes to north. Oh, I'm sorry, the line is actually here, so it should be more like here.
Indeed.
Put the sentry like right here. That looks better. Yeah. Put the sentry here, because a lot of observer wards that block this camp are going to be in this location. If anything, I should actually place this way more east. I should put it about here.
Your top tower is
That covers a lot more. This one goes south, more south down this way, which may be better. But this one checks for more observer wards that are on the east side. I feel like a lot of people don't place their observers here. And this looks like a pretty good place to me. Let's just kill all the wards here, so we get a little bit less muddled. If I put an observer ward here, let's take a look at what it spots.
I thought as much.
It's actually quite good. It's almost exactly the same as putting an observer ward here, and I feel like it's slightly less likely to be dewarded as an observer ward here. So if I'm blocking this camp and I want good vision, this one is okay. Or you can place over here. Down in this area is alright. This actually does block, I believe, because the limit's right here. There was one that March used to always place. He would place it here when we played against him in Korea when he was playing offlane. But this ward wouldn't give it as good a vision because there's trees in the way. If you place a little bit more right of that, you can still get vision over here, and also good vision in this area. So an offlane observer ward that's quite good is this one, I think. Maybe this is better to place. If you don't necessarily want to use the Super Ninja ward right here. Oops, that's blink. Right here. If you don't want to use the Super Ninja ward or the one down here that blocks, then if you don't want to use either of those, then I think this one is pretty good, or this one is pretty good, is probably how I'd place it. So if you're dewarding this, the rightmost limits, I think this is probably your best sentry, honestly. This one right here is really good. If it's a lower level pub game, you're better off doing this sentry here, so you can spot for these observer wards. Very rarely, I think, will somebody run up to the offlane and they'll put an observer ward here. I don't think that's very common. They mostly place them for vision, so depending on what your MMR is, it's going to completely change how you will place your detection or everything. So if you guys actually watched this whole video, I applaud you. I have no idea how long this game was for you guys, but I actually spent about 80 minutes making it just now, considering I've been through 2 games here, so hopefully I didn't waste too much of your time. Thanks for watching. At the very least, I hope you guys enjoyed the first parts, the pull camp, wards and dewarding, and the ancient warding and dewarding. Those ones are pretty important. I really should have put this one earlier, but I didn't. So hopefully you guys stuck through it and you tuned in. Alright, thanks for watching. Share this with your friends. I actually put a lot of work into this video compared to most of my videos, so I hope you guys learned a lot, and share it with your friends if they need those tips. All support players should know this. It is so important that you know this, because it helps massively in your early game to be able to ward or deward. So, alright, thanks for watching, guys. I will see you later. Goodbye.